Hello, welcome back to a brand new episode of the Moran Show. I'm here with Mr. John Tortorelli, and we're going to talk about the biggest storylines of NFL Week 2 and come away with our winners and losers of Week 2. It's not over just yet. We have two games on Monday Night Football, but for the most part, the bulk of the week is done. John, how are you doing?
I'm doing amazing. We had an awesome slate of games last night, and even though my Steelers didn't get the W, I felt like there was a lot of big takeaways for some teams that coming in, we didn't know if week one was going to be a fluke or not. We didn't know if that was going to continue. And for a few teams, we learned a lot about them yesterday.
We did. And I feel like the team right now that most might be panicking on are the Kansas City Chiefs. 0-2, first time they started 0-2 in the Patrick Mahomes era. And I feel like this is the worst they've looked. Last year, it looked like that as well, but they were able to rattle off win after win. They finished with 15 wins in the regular season. But in watching how they played last year, it felt like this isn't sustainable. Yet they were able to go all the way to the Super Bowl. But now Patrick Mahomes has undergone his longest losing streak of his NFL career, 3 games in a row. You include the Super Bowl and the first 2 games of this season. And it's not looking like things are on the up and up for the Chiefs anytime soon because Rashid Rice is coming back week 6. For right now, Mahomes has to make do with what he has, and it's not that much.
Not at all. And it comes down to last season, like you highlighted, it wasn't the same as the previous 2 years when they won the Super Bowl. But last year, they're still able to make those swing plays and got to have situations where yesterday they lose to an equal team in 2018 in their last 19 games by 3 points. And all of those swing plays that we've seen them historically win on, it's the missed field goal in the first quarter by Bucker. It's the Travis Kelce drop that leads to a near pick six later in the game. It's all of those different moments where this is obviously a different Chief team compared to past years because the defense isn't what it was last season. You look at losing L'Jarius Sneed and then Justin Reed back-to-back years, and you can argue for all of their questions last year on the offensive line, the weapons room, that their secondary is the biggest issue with this team. So I would say that looking at yesterday's game, it became very clear to me, if it wasn't already, that this team needs not only Rashee Rice, but Xavier Worthy to come back midseason in their best form. Because Travis Kelce, he's going to be able to make plays, and if he's a 2B, you feel comfortable with that. But if he's the lead option in your passing game, you can't rely on him consistently. And then Isaiah Pacheco is someone who, coming off his injury, has been a shell of himself. And it's to a point where Patrick Mahomes is their best rusher right now. And that's something I don't feel great about. I know Chief fans will think back to his QB sneak, which led to a knee dislocation all those years ago against the Broncos. You don't want Patrick Mahomes to have to run the ball as much as he is scrambling and evading pressure. You want the offense to look closer to what it did in 2022. And largely, I feel like this Chief team is just struggling right now to find those late, gotta have it key plays to win these games. But I would not say I'm panicking whatsoever.
Mahomes needs help. That's what it comes down to. Mahomes needs help. You look at the Travis Kelce drop that led to the interception. That's really been Mahomes' one of his only crucial mistakes of the season thus far. Because through 2 games, he has 4 touchdowns, 1 interception, which came from a drop. It wasn't his fault. And he has over 500 yards. So he's doing what he can to keep this offense afloat. It just feels like since 2022, they lost Tyreek Hill and they were still able to have one of the best offenses in the NFL. Patrick Mahomes won MVP. The major difference between then and now is, I think, Travis Kelce has been regressing since then. 2022 was Travis Kelce still playing like the best tight end in the NFL. And him taking a significant drop off, you see in 2023, Rashee Rice doesn't burst onto the scene until late. Then last year, he's essentially out for the season. Then this year, you don't have him to start the year, and Xavier Worthy is also out, and he might come back this week, but he's basically a huge injury risk. He gets hit the wrong way, and he could be out for the season, and he might need surgery. So right now, things feel like they're on thin ice. This is just all the problems that I see with the Chiefs right now. And, had it not been for Patrick Mahomes being able to elevate a subpar supporting cast, we would be having this conversation a long time ago, right? Because if they didn't win in 2022, if they didn't win in 2023, we're looking at the weapons as the reason why they didn't win. The same way we look at Josh Allen supporting cast, Lamar supporting cast, we nitpick their teams. The reason why we haven't nitpicked the Chiefs is because they've been able to win despite all their flaws. But right now it's caught up to them where Mahomes through 2 games is their leading passer and rusher. They have no good running backs. Isaiah Pacheco is not a good player. Kareem Hunt is old and he doesn't have any burst anymore. And it's with Pacheco, you have speed, but you don't have vision. With Hunt, you have vision, but you don't have speed. Brashard Smith is their 7th-round rookie. Receivers, Travis Kelce had 2 drops against the Eagles. Tyquan Thornton cut from the Patriots. Juju cut from the Patriots. These are Mahomes' best pass catcher options right now. And Hollywood Brown is up and down. And then the pass rush, they blitzed Jalen Hurts on 16 of his 25 dropbacks, the highest rate a Chiefs DC has ever sent since taking a job in KC, since 2019, essentially. And that's because they cannot generate pressure with their 4. They did the same thing against the Chargers. They blitzed them a lot. And it's because they don't have good pass rushers outside of Chris Jones that can consistently win. So right now we're looking at a Chiefs team that's extremely vulnerable, and these one-score games are going the other way for them because they're not winning on the margins. And I feel like the Eagles game, man, if the Chiefs won, we're talking about how bad the Eagles looked because the Eagles offense was even worse. And they have AJ Brown, they have Devontae Smith, they have Saquon Barkley, they have all pros on the offensive line. But the Chiefs lost because of crucial plays that weren't made. And I'm just looking at this team right now, and I just don't see how they're going to be competing for a chance to go to the Super Bowl this year. I just think that this year is one of those retool years for the Chiefs where it's just proof that Mahomes cannot carry the entire burden, and they got to do something.
Absolutely. And it seems like all those years ago, like 2022, we both mentioned, Travis Kelce was clutch in those fourth quarters. Every single go-ahead drive that the Chiefs made, he was something you can count on. And now that you don't have that, you're counting on Rashee Rice coming back after missing almost a full year. And on top of that, like you said, like Xavier Worthy and Hollywood Brown, those are 2 different guys that you like them as secondary options, but if they get injured, you're looking right again at Tyquan Thornton, Juju. So I think that largely for Kansas City, they just got to make sure they can win this division, which starting 0-2 doesn't make it easy. If they're going on the wild card on the road, that's a team I could see having a much earlier exit this year opposed to the last couple.
They were a wild card team in 2023.
The Chiefs?
Yes.
They won the division.
Yeah, but
Well,
they were.
I'm saying if they're on the
yes.
road in the wild card.
Yes.
Yeah.
They were, though, against Miami, I believe. No. They were home against Miami. Then they were on the road against Buffalo and Baltimore. 2 games on the road.
Yep.
I just feel like if they get in, they'll have a chance. But right now, it looks really rough. And a lot of Mahomes' numbers throwing the ball deep down the field, I think there's a couple things to dive into. Since 2023, he has a 75 passer rating. That's 35th out of 47 quarterbacks. And a 0.30 EPA per dropback, which ranks 28th, and 10.5 yards per attempt, which ranks 22nd. You need great receivers to be able to pass the ball deep down the field. That's why you see a lot of quarterbacks that are very efficient when they are targeting 20 plus yards down the field. Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, Jalen Hurts, AJ Brown. You usually need a guy to throw the ball down the field to. And it was reported recently that Mike Florio said that KC has interest in trading for Tyreek Hill. Now, I think that would be the perfect reunion. I think it would bring a huge spark to the offense because I think that Tyreek Hill still has a lot left in the tank. But another option that I don't think would break the bank as much, who's also on a contract year, is Alec Pierce. I think Alec Pierce in Indianapolis is a great vertical separator who can threaten defenses down the field, and that's somebody that you have to respect. I don't know if Indy would be willing to move off from him because they like their abundance and riches there in Indy. They have a lot of good weapons, but I don't know if what they need more. I don't know if it's a receiver or I don't know if it's a running back because I kind of feel like they need both equally as much because right now they just can't run the ball.
Yeah, they do need both equal as much. I could see them going for a younger option because of the fact last year they tried getting DeAndre Hopkins, an aging veteran, and it worked as poorly as one would have hoped. And I could see this front office saying to themselves, we want to go the younger route. And Pierce is somebody who in Indianapolis last year led the NFL in yards per reception. And if he gets a larger role, one could see him and Mahomes having that next step forward. So I would say Pierce is someone that I like a lot. But that being said, depends on the Colts getting an offer that's going to make them happy because they're a team trying to win now.
And the 2 running backs that I think they can maybe target, one is Breece Hall contract year. I think I would be a great get for the Chiefs. I mean, receiving back, check. And then a running back that can actually make defenses be honest,
Mhm.
especially with the amount of light boxes that Brees Hall will now see in KC.
Yep.
I think that would be a perfect pairing. And then Tyler Algier is lesser, but he's just much better than what they have now. And he's been a perfect complement to Bijan Robinson, to where Tyler Algier has still been really efficient on his touches. I just think that the Chiefs, they cannot wait. Like, I think any year you have Mahomes, and the Chiefs still, like, they're good enough to compete. They need to make a move to really make them better offensively.
Brees Hall, that would make a big difference. That move, it happens in the all season. I could see that solving the running back issue.
I could see it too. Now, the next team that we're going to talk about is the Cincinnati Bengals, because Joe Burrow went out with an injury, turf toe. He's going to be out 3 months. That's going to be a while. That's 12 games of the NFL season. Where do the Bengals go from here after Joe Burrow's injury and the updates that we've gotten on this so far?
So, in the short term, Jake Browning shown, as we saw yesterday, finding a way to rally win this game, that they can stay afloat in the short term with their abundance of playmaking. But this to me is emblematic of a franchise which has went far too long failing to protect a franchise quarterback. And we've seen the Bengals make moves around the edges, Amaris Mims in the draft, Trent Brown. But overall, this is a team that was called to action after his rookie year, where he tears his ACL on a disgusting hit he took, to spend as much as they could scouting and investing their draft resources on the offensive line. And Burrow historically has been arguably the toughest quarterback in the league, and remarkably isn't phased by these hits, and yet he still continues to stand tall in the pocket, taking shots on third down and get the most out of these plays. But this all season, you look at the interior of this offensive line, and their biggest investment is investing a fourth round pick rookie at guard. And it's clear to me that moving forward, the Bengals, they're a team that you just can't trust until you see it, to make the most out of the situation that they have, which is a franchise quarterback. And it is eerily reminiscent of Andrew Luck in Indianapolis, where you have weapons, you have a lot of playmaking, but ultimately, if your quarterback is going to miss a large chunk of 3 or 5 seasons, it ultimately does not matter. And this is a Bengal franchise that is focused on the draft by getting as many defensive players on the front seven. They've missed the majority of those picks in recent years. And then you look at the offensive line, and largely they just have not invested in the interior. And then the tackle position is still very up and down. So I would say where the Bengals go from here in the long term, it's obvious. This is a team that from the moment they took Jamar Chase, it should have been, we're taking Jamar at 6, and the next 3 draft picks are going to be O-line. And we're going to do everything we can to make the most out of those second round, those third round picks. And that's what's got to be moving forward, because as much time as Burrow misses, it continues to shorten a window, and you cannot take a quarterback like him for granted.
I'm hoping that Joe Burrow is not becoming a what if right in front of our eyes. He's not a young quarterback anymore. He's 29 years old. He's going to be 30 years old really soon. Next season is going to be 30 years old. And this is a quarterback that has been injured in 3 of his 6 NFL seasons. Rookie year, ACL, MCL. I mean, his entire knee was torn apart. He had to sit out the entire season. He comes back from that injury, and then he dislocates his pinky. That's a minor injury. Fine, you can deal with that. 2022, an MCL sprain, another knee injury. 2023, a torn wrist ligament. He misses the second half of the year for the Cincinnati Bengals. And now 2025, we're talking about a grade 3 turf toe. He's going to be out 3 months. We're talking about 3 of his 6 NFL years. One of them, well, he's basically has season-ending injuries for 3 of his 6 NFL seasons, and this season was the only year that he was in the offseason and he was healthy, and he headed into the regular season healthy, and he gets hurt. He's taken way too many hits. You look at the Bengals pass block win rate with Burrow: 2020, 29th, 2021, 30th, 2022, 30th, 2023, 27th, 2024, 32nd, and 2025. These started out as a 28th ranked pass blocking offensive line according to ESPN win rates. So this is an offensive line that has done him no favors. And I think the Bengals season is essentially over, because you look at the next 12 games: the Vikings, Broncos, Lions, Packers, Steelers, Jets, Bears, Steelers, Patriots, Ravens, Bills, Ravens. Best case scenario, 4 to 5 wins. Best case, 5 wins puts them at 7-7 with when Burrow comes back potentially. 4 wins puts them at 6-8. unless they go on a crazy winning streak and they're able to beat Baltimore once, they're able to beat Buffalo, they're able to beat these really tough teams, then I think their season is essentially done. And I don't know where the Bengals go forward from here because they've invested so much into Joe Burrow, but he is unreliable at this point because of all the hits that he's taken, the injury history has piled up. So they kind of have to also, I wouldn't blame them if they think a little bit long term for Joe Burrow because he has dealt with all these injuries. But the number one culprit is the organization. And I know people are going to bring up Joe Burrow's cap hit, him vouching for his best players to get paid and stay with the team. And he did this to himself. I think it's the most dumbest bad faith argument right now in regards to Joe Burrow because it was not Joe Burrow who took Jackson Carman over Sam Cosmi and Creed Humphrey. It was not Joe Burrow who drafted Shamar Stewart instead of drafting maybe an offensive lineman in the first round, who drafted Dax Hill instead of an offensive lineman in the first round. The Bengals have invested a lot of first round draft capital into the defense instead of the offensive line. They've had multiple years outside of the Jamar Chase year because one will just point to that year and say, yeah, if they got Penei Sewell, that fixes everything. Well, no, it doesn't. Because if you get Penei Sewell and 4 other positions on your offensive line aren't good, then you're not going to have a very good offensive line. So the Bengals have missed in free agency. They've missed in the draft. And the reason why other teams are able to have great receivers and pay their talent is because they draft well. And if the Bengals can't draft well, then this is how you get a glaring hole on your roster where the Bengals have two, their defense and their offensive line. And if you trade T. Higgins or you refuse to pay T. Higgins or you refuse to pay Jamar Chase, all you are doing is creating another hole on the roster and not having any insurance plan. That's all you're doing.
Exactly. Because the defense doesn't matter if Burrow is not healthy. And like I was highlighting before, year after year, it's been defense line, linebacker. And if you're hitting those picks, it's one thing. They have not been hitting these picks historically. And so it adds an extra layer of, all right, you're not solving either of the two issues because you haven't been able to develop this young talent. So when I really look at it from the Bengals side, it's going to come down to these next couple of years, like you highlighted. This year, their biggest investment, Dylan Fairchild, 3rd-round pick late. That to me is going to have to be the bare minimum. But like, I shouldn't even say that should be the bare minimum. The expectation should be rounds 1 and 2. We're going to scout and put everything, all of our marbles into developing NFL-ready talent because that's the only way that moving forward, they're going to change this narrative because ultimately it's rightful to compare him to a guy like Andrew Luck, who has been elite from day one. He has taken this franchise to heights they haven't been to in a very long time, and the protection in place for him, it just has not met that. In terms of the pie of supporting Burrow, the O-line should be most important.
Exactly. And that was their major, like this offseason, what did they do to the offensive line? They brought in Dalton Risner late in the offseason, and he was terrible thus far. Through 2 weeks, he's been awful. And then Dylan Fairchild, a 4th-round rookie. You know, that's what you're doing for Joe Burrow. That's what you're doing. You know, I understand how dire the need at edge rusher was for their defense. But if you are weighing out the importance of what you need, 1st-round offensive line for them, it feels like that should have been a locked-in pick every year, even if they have to overdraft a little bit. But they haven't been able to scout. Like, you know, they had chances where they drafted Jackson Carman and they drafted him over Creed Humphrey and Sam Cosmi, and those are 2 Pro Bowl level interior offensive linemen. So they've just also just flat out missed. NFL Week 2 winners and losers. I have about 5 to 6 winners. We can start with the winners off first. I'll do one, you do one.
Mm-hmm.
My first winner is the Green Bay Packers. Not only do they look like the best team in the NFL, but in the same week, the Lions dropped 52 on the Bears, and it kind of shows everybody, holy moly. The Packers didn't just beat up on a weak offense that lost Ben Johnson and now is inept. They beat up on an offense that's still going to be one of the best offenses in the world, and they completely shut the door on them. So I think the Lions' big victory over the Bears kind of showed us that the Packers defense might just be one of the better ones that we've seen in some time.
Absolutely. And you saw, I guess, coming into the season, a lot of people had questions about the run defense. We realized very early on in week one, shutting down Jahmyr Gibbs, that no, this run defense is very damn good. And then you stack on top of that the breakouts, young players, Tucker Kraft, Keisha Nixon, and the Kraft element's important because of the fact that it allows Matthew Golden to slowly, week by week, be incorporated without expecting him to be what those elite rookie receivers were last year. And so that's the biggest game changer. I want to start off with a team that took a lot of flack a couple of weeks ago, and they named their starting quarterback. That's the Indianapolis Colts. The NFL world was outraged when Daniel Jones was named the starter, and the Colts technically haven't punted yet through 2 weeks. And week one versus the Dolphins, defense played fantastic. Daniel Jones was decisive, played a good game. And then yesterday, he was winning a shootout versus the Denver Broncos. And Shane Steichen is a coach that his job security is defined and it's rooted in results this year. Context and process does not matter when you have ownership, new ownership now coming after the passing Jim Irsay and his family inheriting the team, and they're looking strictly at how many wins are we going to have and how many losses are we going to end up finishing with. And to have this start against, especially the Broncos, who are one of the best defenses in football, where Daniel Jones is playing some of his best ball, and we're seeing him play on time. He's accurate. So far, 3% sack rate compared with 8.3% career-wide average. And it really reflects that this is the best support system Daniel Jones has had when Shane Steichen's a good offensive mind, Tyler Warren's look great, and then the running back and wide receiver room don't have any holes. I mean, can you, like, looking back at the Giants tenure, I can't remember the last time there wasn't a hole in that offense. And that alone, that gives the Colts a high floor, and it also gives Jones a really good chance to have the best year of his career.
That goes hand in hand with another winner I had, and that's Shane Steichen's job security.
Mm-hmm.
His job is riding on Daniel Jones. And so far through 2 weeks, they're riding a high, and the Colts look like a team that can compete for the AFC South because they're the one team in this division that it doesn't feel like they have a major problem. It doesn't feel like they have a major weakness. The Jaguars, you can point to it. The Texans, you can point to it. The Titans, definitely. The Colts feel like the best all-around team. The question mark was quarterback, and Daniel Jones is playing well for them. What's your other winner?
My next winner is going to be the Dallas Cowboys. Yesterday, they gave 37 points to a Giant offense that was absolutely on fire. But I think the biggest thing at the Cowboys is that they had a big question this year coming on offense at running back. And so far through 2 weeks, we've seen Javonte Williams. And I think it's maybe a mix of the opponents they've played, but also the fact that Javonte has a little bit left in the tank. And whether he's kind of that older version of Ezekiel like they had all those years ago, him yesterday posting 5.4 yards per carry. He's had 3 touchdowns so far through 2 weeks. That adds an extra gear to this offense. Then yesterday, you saw them rally from behind, have a clutch field goal thanks to Brandon Aubrey, who has continued to be with Chris Boswell, the 2 best kickers in football. And I just think this offense finding that rhythm with Jake Ferguson, CeeDee Lamb, Pickens getting active. He, of course, had that touchdown. It's a nice sight to see for a team that was right there at the defending champs. And that Eagle team has won 18 of their last 19 games. And the Cowboys playing very well week one. And then yesterday, it was really shaping up to be a Russell Wilson masterclass and a stunning loss. And the Cowboys rallied, and now they're 1-1 and looking like one of the most fun teams in football.
The Cowboys are looking awesome. That offense is looking awesome. And George Pickens, the box score might not show up, but every week he's drawing a defensive pass interference and is giving the Cowboys better field position. The box score definitely doesn't do him justice. My next winner is going to be the Lions, getting revenge on Ben Johnson, dropping 52 points on his new team, the Chicago Bears. The Chicago Bears, man, I mean, a lot of offseason hype. I'll talk about them in a little bit, but the Lions getting production from everybody. Jared Goff, 5 passing touchdowns. Jahmyr Gibbs and Monty, a touchdown on the ground. Amon-Ra had 3 touchdowns. Jameson had a touchdown. This was as good of a revenge game as going to get, and they absolutely beat the brakes off the Chicago Bears. What's your next winner?
My next winner is going to be the Buffalo Bills. Week one was so far the best game we've seen this year, and to come back from behind the fourth quarter the way that they did rallying against a Raven team who I feel, and I know many other people feel, were the best team on paper in the NFL. That's a statement win in week one. And then yesterday in week two, you're playing a Jet team that their offense was moving, it was grooving against the Steelers, which we'll get to the Steelers, come have an excuse to talk about them in a little bit. And then yesterday, they stomp on the Jets. Their defense looked a whole lot better. The offense has gotten everyone going, and James Cook as well continues to be a touchdown machine. The Bills, to me, are a team that we continue to slightly, not dismiss them, but we tend to overlook them because maybe their talent on paper isn't on par with some of those other teams that we have at the top of the NFL. But year by year, they show us that this is a team that has a stranglehold on the AFC East, and in those gotta have it games, they're going to continue to show up.
I'm gonna go with for my next winner, Kyle Shanahan's 2021 draft instincts.
Hmm.
Mac Jones, 3 touchdowns in his debut as a starter for the 49ers. Kyle Shanahan has been looking for his guy all along. He's like, where were you? Maybe I should have pulled in the trigger and I should have drafted you back in 2021 instead of Trey Lance. He would have gotten a good quarterback on a cheap rookie deal. And who knows what would have happened. But Kyle Shanahan's draft instincts were always right. He should have trusted that gut feeling. Unfortunately, he didn't. But it all in all landed in getting Brock Purdy. That's how it ended. So I guess it was a win for everybody in the end.
Mm-hmm. So my fifth winner was the Packers, and I'm going to have an extra team in here that I didn't write down, but I think they are worthy of mention, and that's the Seattle Seahawks. Because yesterday, their run defense, and I'm going to bash Steelers, take a little shot. The Steelers run defense, they get right week for everyone they play. And yesterday, we saw Kenneth Walker have a fantastic game, but also Sam Darnold, too, getting all of his weapons going. Cooper Kupp looked fantastic. Torrey Horton, who I have a lot of high hopes for. He has his first NFL touchdown. Then JSN yesterday was having a fantastic game. A lot of his biggest plays coming on Jalen Ramsey, too. That Seahawk offense with Clint Kubiak coming in and the pre-snap motion, the way they're able to incorporate some of these veterans and the young players, it was a resounding way to bounce back after that quiet week one performance. And their defense yesterday, without Devon Witherspoon, without Nicky Minori, they continue to play great football. They shut down the run, and their too high shell gave the Steelers a lot of issues. So they may only be 1-1, but the Seahawks team is better than I thought coming into the year.
You could argue, I mean, they are going to be one of the league's best defense, and Sam Darnold it's not looked bad through 2 weeks. Week
No.
one was a slugfest, but that's a division game. Way to bounce back in week two. I'm going to go with the Falcons defense. They invested a lot of resources into that side of the ball this offseason with their draft, Xavier Watts, Billy Bowman Jr., Jalen Walker, James Pierce Jr. They added 4 defensive players, 2 to their secondary, 2 to their defensive line. And they got Burrow, who was injured last year, who's now healthy this year. That's an added addition. And they also signed Leonard Floyd, who had 3 quarterback hits, and he had a sack against the Minnesota Vikings. This Atlanta Falcons pass rush, their pressure rate is up in a way that Falcons fans have not seen in a while, and they have some nasty, fierce competitors on that secondary. I really like the way the Falcons defense is trending. And if that can be the surprise unit of this year, I think Atlanta has a real shot at winning the NFC South.
It's a good take. I guess one last winner would be maybe a pre-draft opinion of mine. The Panthers offense lacks a lot of talent, but right now Ted McMillan is a player that I think is on pace to have a special rookie season. And the Panthers, kind of like Brian Thomas Jr. last year, need to do a better job of generating more opportunities, more volume for Ted. Because even the plays that some of which had a ridiculous catch just so they didn't count, he is somebody that I believe Panthers will have for a long time as their wide receiver one. And they sorely needed that the last couple of years. They tried to find it with some patchwork moves around the edges. It was Thielen, it was Deontay Johnson, but tip my own little cap here and be like, you know what? Ted McMillan's the best receiver from this draft class. And for Bryce Young, it's a big difference to have that compared to last year.
It is. And Bryce Young, he had a near comeback at the end there against Arizona. But for most of the game, it was kind of up and down. My last winner is going to be Ramondre Stevenson. Just him kind of like, what is going on in the Patriots running back room? We think Travion is going to be the lead back there. Then Ramondre comes in and has a big time game. I thought Travion might have gotten hurt because he wasn't out there at all. But no, it turns out that they were just riding the hot hand. And Ramondre is somebody that in years past, he has looked like a really good running back, but the Patriots offensive line situation and their offensive infrastructure has made it so he hasn't been an efficient running back in years. But I think what he offers as a pass catcher, his toughness, his explosiveness at times, I feel like that was all on display against Miami. Some of the biggest plays that New England had was him taking a screen pass and going for 20 to 30 yards. I mean, Ramondre was really good, and I feel like that just bodes well for the Patriots offensive ecosystem as a whole moving forward. We're going to transition into week 2 losers. Who's your first loser?
I hinted at it before. It's my team, the Pittsburgh Steelers. I always like talking about them. Some weeks, though, it's frustrating, and this is one of those weeks. I don't know where to start. Maybe I'll start with TJ Watt, because this is somebody who's my favorite player in football, one of the best Steeler players we've seen. And through 2 weeks after getting a $40 million extension, he has had 3 pressures in 2 games. And the defense underperforming is not remotely close to solely being on the hands of TJ Watt, because we're an easy defensive game plan against. Despite investing $158 million into this unit, we cannot stop the run. Yesterday, Kenneth Walker had 13 carries for 100 yards and a touchdown. And the week before, we saw Breece Hall. It's the first down runs, and it shows the Steelers are a undisciplined, my apologies, they're an undisciplined team that a lot of the time I think back to the fact that a couple of years ago, we had Brian Flores on our staff, and the Steelers chose to keep Terrell Austin as their defensive coordinator over Flores. So you come to these games, and back-to-back weeks, we get up a first draft touchdown where we stopped them for no plays. There was no negative plays. It was them methodically cruising down the field in 8 plays or less. And I think a lot of the time we don't move TJ Watt around. They're running the opposite side. And on the opposite side, Alex Highsmith is out for 5 to 6 weeks with a high ankle sprain. And a Steelers defense that has so much invested into it is now missing 4 starters by week 3. Deshaun Elliott, MCL sprain, Derek Harmon, MCL sprain, Joey Porter Jr., hamstring, and even Patrick Queen. He returned yesterday but had a rib injury. It's the injuries this early in the season. TJ Watt showing he's not the same level of a game breaker, and I hope that this is just a blimp on the radar, but we saw this throughout parts of last season as well, leading up to his injury versus the Eagles, where he was very quiet the final month. And then offensively, we've shown that we can't run the football. And Jalen Warren's been great as a receiver, but if we can't run the ball, and the Seahawks, to show the NFL the blueprint against us is run a too-high shell, which they specialize in, and you're able to neutralize DK Metcalf over the top, it really limits this offense, and it's going to put Aaron Rodgers in a bind. So I think beyond the defense being so disappointing, this offense is very easily game plan against.
For some reason, bad defenses just follow Aaron Rodgers around like a plague. It's not a good sign. The Bears offseason hype is one of my losers. It feels like they're 0-3 at this point. They've won the last 3 off seasons, and they've lost in a regular season when it actually matters. Just all the things that you thought about this team, right? Offensive line gets a big upgrade. Okay, but they still can't run the football. Ben Johnson being an offensive mastermind, but they still kind of look like they're poorly coached. And then the Lions embarrassing Ben Johnson like that in his homecoming going back to Detroit, I feel like threw salt in the wound a little bit. And it kind of just showed that the Bears, if anything, are a year away. They're a year away from the likes of Minnesota and Detroit and Green Bay. They are very far away from Green Bay. And next year, it's probably going to happen again. They're going to have a really good offseason. And in the regular season, it's not going to translate, because that's just what happens with the Chicago Bears. And Ryan Poles, I don't know what he has to do. I don't know how many mistakes he has to make for his job security to become in jeopardy, because the moves that he's made have been awful. Colson Loveland drafted in the first round. He doesn't have a target in the game, I believe. Luther Burden isn't involved at all. They drafted offensive linemen in the 2nd and 3rd round. They were healthy scratches. I mean, what is he doing with his draft picks? It's just malpractice over there. It's just not a good situation. And it doesn't look like their season's off to a good start either.
No, and beyond the results for the Bears, it comes down to what you see from Caleb Williams this year and his development. And it just has not been a reassuring start. I mean, week 1 was worse because of the fact they gave the game away, and a lot of it was really poor accuracy. But I feel like for Chicago, anytime they're a loser in any given week, it's because they're expecting Caleb Williams to be sharper. And I think by the end of this year, we have a very clear idea of who he exactly is as a quarterback. But so far, it hasn't been really the hope or the start that many of us would have hoped for. The next team for me is going to be the Miami Dolphins, just because coming off a week 1 loss against the Colts where they're dominated, their defense looks so poor. You have 33 points to a Patriot offense that had no issue moving the ball. And largely, I think that was supposed to be the thing that this Dolphin team hung their hat on coming into the year. They had such a great front seven. They had so many pass rushers coming back. You had Minkah Fitzpatrick, but after Minkah, there's nobody in the secondary that you can count on. And then on top of that, the offense, there's so much pressure on Mike McDaniel to build this culture. I think it's kind of taken away from the fact that this offense has been very up and down, a drive-in, drive-out basis. And while by the end of the game, Tua is able to maintain and kind of put it together, it just hasn't been enough when their defense getting up over 30 points a week, and they're giving away the football.
Tua's stat line in the game is emblematic of what I think 80% of Tua games are. His numbers look really good, but you watch the game and you see it's a bunch of short passes that goes for 10 plus yards of yak. I mean, he had 300 passing yards, and I swear to God, I didn't see one difficult throw made. I didn't see one high level throw where I'm like, wow, that was impressive. It just was very lackluster. It was Mike McDaniel building the perfect system for Tua's weaknesses and making him do the bare minimum and still generating high quality offense from that. That's what it is. And he limits this offense a lot because of what he can't do. Another loser I had was Trevor Lawrence and Brian Thomas Jr.'s connection. Trevor Lawrence had an up and down game. I thought he was much better in the second half as opposed to the first half where he had 2 turnovers. I think Trevor Lawrence needs to clean up the interceptions. I think he needs to clean up the accuracy in moments. But Brian Thomas Jr., the amount of drops that he had, the amount of just lackluster physical play where he's shying away from contact because he doesn't want to take a hit. Brian Thomas Jr. has to be much better going forward. He has to make those plays. He's a receiver, and I can understand maybe if you're getting led into a hit and you don't want to take it, that he'll brace a little bit. But the way he played, I mean, you cannot be an elite receiver in the game and shy away from contact. You have to embrace it and you have to brace for it. That's what the high level receivers do. They do that. And for him to drop a pass on 4th down that would have essentially clinched the game for Jacksonville was devastating. I mean, that's as easy of a pass as you can ask for. That's an easy as of a catch. And this receiver who had all this hype coming into the season doesn't make that. I think Trevor Lawrence and Brian Thomas Jr. to this point, amongst all Jaguars pass catching options, when Lawrence targets him, he has his lowest passer rating. And it shows based on the film, and that connection needs to be on the same page.
That's going to be a huge part of that Jaguar team's success. I mean, Brian Thomas Jr. coming out off his rookie season, the expectation was only built off that. So I think it's really a matter of Mac Jones plays best. Brian Thomas plays best football with Mac Jones. So it's definitely a bigger issue that's getting discussed. My last loser would have to be the Denver Broncos. Week 1 versus the Titans, the offense and Bo Nix really struggled. And then in week 2, this Colt team looked very good. But on the flip side of that, it wasn't a reassuring game from this Broncos defense. But Jonathan Taylor, this was one of the best run defenses. You can make the case the best run defense in football last year. And then Jonathan Taylor yesterday has 165 rushing yards. And on top of that, Daniel Jones plays one of his best games in recent vintage. And I think kind of hinging with that, if you're giving up this Broncos defense more than 25, more than 28 points, don't believe that this offense can generate up into the 30s to win these games consistently. So I would say that looking at the Broncos defense and just the way that Bo Nix started week 1, week 2 is better, I would have to say it's my last loser of the week.
The Broncos are frauds, John, and there's 2 reasons why. Bo Nix is your quarterback. He's not good. He's not good, John. He's not good. I don't think he's good. I don't watch him and say that's a good quarterback. I just don't. And the defense is a little bit overrated. Look at how many points they allowed against all the top offenses last year. They couldn't stop any of them. It's not like the Green Bay Packers. But the Packers, my team, we do it on defense. We get it done, John. I have some losers here, some two ones. I have 3 more actually, but I'm gonna get by these 2 ones quick. Player only meetings don't work. That's an obvious loser. Dolphins going to player only meeting. They have one after week 1's loss. In week 2, they put up a fight, but they still lose at the end of the day. They don't work. I don't think they've ever worked. I think whenever a player only meeting happens, the season 90% chance it just goes down and it sinks. I think the only time it worked out was maybe with the Celtics when they won the championship and the energy shifted for Jaylen Brown. But outside of that, I don't think they work. The tush push, an obvious loser, because the Eagles used the tush push on 11% of their offensive snaps on Sunday. It was ugly football, and they even pointed out how the offensive linemen a lot of the time are going off sides during the play. So it's already hard to stop the play in itself. It's impossible to stop if you aren't officiating it fairly. I just don't think it's good football. I don't think it's creative. I don't think it's fun to watch. I think it's ugly. I think it's sluggish. It's 3rd and 1. It's like, oh, tush push time. I'm like, oh, look at these guys. Like, oh my fucking God. This again. Like, this is some BS. So I'm gonna be glad when it gets banned because just quarterback sneak it. That's it. Why do we have to have the tush push? Just QB sneak it. We don't have to have nothing fancy.
I'm over the tush push myself, and part of it is kind of the envy of seeing this team be so dominant and, for the most part, so dominant in red zone and short yard situations, and no one else has been fully able to replicate it. But like you said, though, it really is ugly football to watch, and it takes so long to get that entire pile back up just to see if he was able to cross the pile or cross into the first down marker. And a lot of the time, that just takes away from the game quality and entertainment value.
My last loser is going to be JJ McCarthy. Can you recall the last time that a 14-3 team had a quarterback who was for most of the year in the MVP discussion, and then that team let walk away in favor of a 22-year-old quarterback? And through 2 games, that quarterback, JJ McCarthy, in 7 of his 8 quarters has looked like one of, if not the worst, starting quarterback in the NFL. Now I already know the excuses are going to be in abundance. The offensive line is injured. Yeah, I can excuse that to a degree. But the better quarterbacks in the league, they avoid sacks. JJ McCarthy, to this point, for me, through 2 games, is very small sample size. He has not shown a good pocket feel. He takes too many sacks. But his struggles didn't fall on the offensive line, in my opinion. His struggles fall on his mechanics, on his accuracy, and his inability to fully read the field, because right now he is only reading the right side of the field. He's not throwing to the left side, and this was a problem in college as well. And we're looking at a Vikings team that, I mean, you could have brought back Sam Darnold. You didn't need to rush JJ. Jordan Love sat for 3 years. JJ didn't need to be rushed, but they rushed him. He looks very raw right now. And Sam Darnold, at the very least, you know what he gives you. And who knows? We're never going to know now, but Sam Darnold, year 2 in the Vikings offensive system, he could have gotten even better.
He could have. At the same time, in football, you trade up for a top 10 pick, you move up for a player with that much draft investment, and there's always going to be urgency. And JJ is definitely someone that's going to need reps. Week 1, it was ugly early. He kind of stayed the ship, figured it out in the second half, and that was a valiant second half performance where his leadership and the intangibles, something that was praised at his time in Michigan, kind of stood out. But yesterday was not a reassuring game at all. To me, it comes down to that Viking team being able to kind of put the training wheels on, simplifying the offense. I think the healthier they get on that side of the ball, it'll kind of smooth itself out. But there's no denying right now there's some rough edges in this offense.
That's going to do it for my winners and losers, Mr. John Tortorelli. I appreciate you for joining me on the show.
Thank you for having me. It was an absolute blast to be here, and I'm very excited for week 3. More importantly, I'm excited for these games on tonight. We got 2 of them. So,
yep, and make sure you guys like and subscribe to the channel. Follow John everywhere. Make sure to tap into him. We're going to be doing this weekly, so stay tuned for that. John, I'll catch you later. Thank you to John for coming on the show. Every week, he's going to be a recurring guest, so make sure you guys are tapped in. I'm going to get into the final segment of this show. 5 takes I'm changing after 2 weeks of the NFL season. I think this is fair. We can't always get everything right in the offseason. It's a lot of projecting, and hey, you can't win them all. But I'm giving myself this grace. 2 weeks into the NFL season, I've seen 2 games. These are 5 takes I'm changing. And after this, I'm not changing nothing else. But these are the 5 that I locked in on. Number 1, the Chiefs winning the AFC West. I just don't see it. I think their schedule is insanely tough. Their offensive supporting cast around Mahomes is lackluster. And right now, a team I'm really loving is the LA Chargers. So I think hand in hand. So I think this goes hand in hand. The Chiefs. So I think this goes hand in hand. The Chiefs won't win the AFC West because I have the Chargers winning the AFC West. I really believe in what Jim Harbaugh is building. I think Herbert's going to have an MVP year. He has a great offensive supporting cast, and their defense gives them a solid floor. My second take, Another thing, Chiefs related, Patrick Mahomes is not winning MVP. Now, don't get me wrong. He's been awesome through 2 games, 4 touchdowns, 1 interception, but he's not going to have the counting stats with his lackluster supporting cast to win the MVP, especially when you look at the start that Lamar Jackson is off to, Josh Allen is off to. You look at the start Jordan Love is off to, Justin Herbert, we'll see what he does against the Raiders tonight, is off to. I think Mahomes, he's going to look like it on film when you watch him, but he's not going to have the numbers. Number 3, the Broncos making the playoffs. I just don't see it. I think the Broncos are overrated, and I wish I would have went back in the offseason and hit this hammer harder. But the Broncos, to me, are a team that I can't fully believe in because Bo Nix is their quarterback. And I know people are going to think that sounds harsh, but I just don't see it with Bo Nix. I just don't see a great quarterback. I see an average quarterback at best. I've seen players like this. I've seen fan bases jump to defend players like this all the time, blaming everything but their level of play. And I feel like that's happening with Bo Nix every week now. Nothing's ever his fault. It's somebody else's fault. It's Sean Payton's fault. It's the receiver's fault. It's whatever. I just don't think Bo Nix is that good. And I think the defense is overrated. Last year, they got gashed against the top offenses in the AFC and in the NFL in general. They were not able to stop anybody. I think this is a very good defense. Is this a shutdown upper echelon? You're going up against a big blue blood in the NFL and you're going to shut down their offense? No, I think this defense is just good, but it's nothing special. Number 4, the Colts finished in 3rd in the AFC South. My goodness, I was wrong. And I have a tough time buying into hot start teams after last year's Saints, but I'm going to make an exception for the Colts because I think the Colts are one of the most talented teams in the AFC South, and I think they're going to be better than Tennessee, of course. Going to be better than the Jacksonville Jaguars. I think they have a better complete team than them, and would it shock you if Daniel Jones had better numbers than Trevor Lawrence this year? It wouldn't shock me. And then the Texans' offensive line is just such a disaster. The Colts have the most balanced team in the AFC South, and I think they're going to win the AFC South. And then my last take I'm changing, the Falcons finishing 3rd in the NFC South. I had Carolina over them. I'm out on Carolina. I really don't believe in Bryce Young either, and I don't believe in their team. I just think they're not good. And the Atlanta Falcons are looking like a true threat to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Atlanta has a good young defense that's full of energy. They have an awesome offensive supporting cast with Michael Penix Jr. Michael Penix is going to keep getting better and better and better. So those are the 5 takes I'm changing 2 weeks into the NFL season, and I only get one of these. So I will not go back a month later and say I got the Chiefs winning or I got this and that winning. Nope. This is what I'm changing. This is what I'm sticking to, and that's what it's going to be. That's going to do it for this episode of the Joel Moran Show. Thank you guys for watching. Make sure you guys like the video and subscribe to the channel as it helps it out a lot. I'll see you guys next time.